Hello, and welcome to another teaching from TorahFamily.org. We are a family-based ministry that believes the whole Bible stands forever, that all of it is based in the Torah, and all of it promotes the Torah. Please visit us at TorahFamily.org for more teachings like this one. We hope this teaching helps you learn and grow in the faith. Men of Yahweh, Chapter 24. Let them win. Ever been defeated at something before? I'm talking about anything from board games to sports or anything where competition is involved. Of course you have. Most of the time, we're able to work our way through a defeat. Many of us even make the defeat be that thing that drives us to not be defeated again, or at least not as often. However, when one gets defeated over and over and over again, with no glimpse of ever rising up to win, well, the feeling of, what's the use, can take over. Not long after that, we can give up and completely avoid that game or event for the rest of our lives. The thought that gets implanted into our mind is, well, it's just not my thing. The next thing you know, when consecutive defeats begin to take place in any other area of our lives, they can easily lead to a quicker response of, well, it's just not my thing. Instead of fighting for something, we become far more apt to give up and walk away. Or even worse, we may stay with it, but only out of a have-to feeling. This leads to no drive, no passion, and no hunger to improve. Did you know that we as fathers can create this in our children without even knowing it? At the same time, we can foster a hunger in them to achieve and be more. This is especially so for both scenarios when they're in their younger years. However, we can still create it or even overcome it in their teenage years as well. But how do we do this? Well, it's simpler than you may imagine. Anytime we play with our children, we need to come down to their level. If we continuously play the role of the dominant player and always defeat them at whatever we're doing with them, it begins to create a feeling in them that says, I'm never going to win. Sometimes we need to let them be David, and we play the role of Goliath. When we do, hope can start to build in them. Confidence levels can begin to soar. A vision of growing beyond where they are can take off like never before. Our children need that vision. They need that encouragement of, I can do this. Some may say, but Steve, that just sets them up for something other than reality. From one perspective, I can see that. However, that's not the case if we teach them to put their trust in Yahweh. For example, consider what takes place in Exodus chapter 13. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt armed for battle. I have to confess that I chuckle every time I read these verses. First, we see where Yahweh takes the Israelites a longer way around to their destination for the express purpose of keeping them from facing war. So, what's he doing? He's protecting them. However, look at the last verse again. It says the Israelites went up out of Egypt armed for battle. I can just imagine it. The men were all decked out in armor, thinking they were big, bad, bold, and bodacious. My imagination runs to seeing a young boy putting a football helmet on for the first time. More often than not, the second that helmet's in place, they feel invincible. They feel like they could take on anybody. And many times they try. That's exactly how I see the men of Israel at this moment. But Yahweh knew they weren't what they thought they were. He knew if they faced war that they'd turn tail and run right back to Egypt. So he allowed them to think they were awesome when they weren't. He allowed them to have the feeling of conquering even though he was the one who brought it all to come to pass. So here we have Yahweh setting an example as our Heavenly Father. It's a great example, in my eyes anyway. With this example alone, please consider what we read in Ephesians chapter 5. Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Be imitators of God. Knowing Yahweh is our Heavenly Father, think of all the times he had our backs, but we moved forward as if it was our strength getting us through. And looking back now, we see perfectly how it wasn't our strength, but it was him. If he didn't see us through, we would have never made it. However, how many times has that happened to us in the past? Likewise, we should give our children that opportunity to win even though it's us who's allowing it. I can't tell you how much I loved wrestling around with my children when they were younger. There were so many times when I would completely defeat them in the battle. However, because I let them beat me in times before, they always called for a rematch. They always had a glimmer of hope that they could do it again. Today, well, they're all teenagers, and it's more like I need them to take it easy on me, especially if they all three gang up on me at the same time. I may get one of them for a moment, but the second they call for backup, I have to run. Whatever we do, let's not take the will to fight out of our children. Strengthen it, empower it, guard it, guide it. Give them hope that they can grow. Isn't that what our Heavenly Father does for us? Absolutely. Some will say that strong-willed children don't have this problem, though I see the point. I struggle to give them a broad brush in that way. While it may take longer for their will to be broken or crushed, they're still not invincible. Many times what can happen with a strong-willed child is that their will won't be broken, but misdirected to the negative. That's why we see this in Ephesians chapter 6. Fathers, don't exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. A very similar verse can be found in Colossians chapter 3. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. These two verses show we can anger and discourage our children. Obviously, there are multiple ways this can happen. However, it doesn't take much imagination to see that one plausible way could be, as silly as it may sound, through never allowing them to have a victory in the simple things we do with them. There's a time for everything. Let them have their times to win. At times, make them work hard for it. But let them win. How many times has Yahweh done that for us? Ecclesiastes tells us there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. So, give them that opportunity to win from time to time. Be the giant that falls to David. Be the army that falls to Gideon. Give your children that taste of victory. Then, teach them how to fight for it in the army of Yahweh. We hope you have enjoyed this teaching. Now, it's up to you to be a Berean and study it for yourself. That's the only way to grow. Until next time, Shalom.